Hi everyone, I'm Anshika from A Blank Slate and welcome to the second episode of Kala Se Rubaru, an initiative that celebrates Indian craftsmanship. Last week we had with us Miss Dhanashree Kelkar from Clay Chronicles. This week with us we have Love Rora and Pratik Degwekar from Egg Design, a furniture and lifestyle studio based in Pune. They strive to amalgamate traditional and modern craftsmanship in order to create minimal designs and pieces of art that adhere to Indian roots while embracing modernity. I'll just add them to the video.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Love and Prajwal.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So the first question, should I start with the question? How did you come up with the name Egg Design and what's your story? How did you come up with this firm? Start the firm.
Okay, so Love and I were batchmates in MIT in Pune. We finished our course in 2016, and one of the courses at the time was typography. So during typography, we were taught a little bit of graphics and this and that, and I had a very good idea for a logo that time. And since then, I had the plan to mix Devanagari script and English and basically give them the background of what we stand for today, a little bit of traditional work with some modernism. And that's how the Egg Design logo was made, and that's how the name was formed. So that is the story behind how the logo was made and how the company got named.
Okay. So, Can you tell us about your journey from how did learning this craft happen, and did you get formally trained for it?
So formally trained, as in we are both product designers, so we've been trained in the design field of things. We haven't been trained in actual working of things. That happened on the go. So for the first 2 years, we were a studio. We did not have our own factory set up, and we used to outsource manufacturing, take in orders, design our things, and outsource manufacturing. That led to more and more learning. 2 years ago, we started the factory, and there were times when we had to get more and more hands-on, get to know the craft better, so that we can make sure quality was in proper shape. And that's how I think so. One way to put it is we got our hands dirty, and that's the only way to do it, and that's how we learned.
So actually, Prajwal started the company initially. He used to run a design studio and a manufacturing unit. So there was a lot of hands-on work which he did. And while I was in 2 years in Bombay doing all the jobs which I had, like furniture, I worked for Josmo, Hatsu, Eureka. So I actually learned the process of designing furniture, the process of designing products. Initially, I also did product design, but recently during my job, I got a keen interest in doing furnitures and products. So then later on, we actually had there was like a brief call, and then it just happened. So everything happened just really organic that we both collaborated together on this on the 15 pieces which we recently launched at Raw Collaborative and Design ID. So that's how it happened.
Oh, that's amazing. So, what influences do you draw from the traditional Indian craft? Because that's your main thing. So, what specifics would you delve into, and what style do you categorize your pieces into?
So initially, when you talk about the design language, what we had in mind is a clear strategy of what are the audiences we are targeting. So that there was a back-end research to all the design of the products, like what are the target users, what are the budgets to be keeping in mind, what are the materials that we are comfortable with working with, because we wanted to, since we are putting our foot forward, we wanted to put our best piece forward and consider the materials which we are very comfortable in working with. So that's how we decided a target audience, we decided a budget, we shortlisted a few materials. Since Prajwal has a good hand on working with wood and we have artisans in-house, so we thought wood to be a main material, playing with different finishes in metal and different manufacturing techniques, which usually sorts in our budget also, but there's a hint of design also. So to come something in between. So as in I can show you, so we keep sampling these. So woods in different stains, just to see what are the properties of the materials and how can we incorporate them in a design language, still very user friendly and affordable. So we usually use cane weaving as one of the main traditional crafts to an extent. But yeah, there's a lot more to explore also, which we are targeting this year.
Okay. So where does the sustainability aspect come into your process? Like, is it the process or the materials, or like what part of it?
So sustainability starts right from sourcing the material. Basically, we work with a lot of reclaimed teak wood, which basically means the teak is running its second or third cycle of use. There are a lot of these old buildings that get broken down. They have windows, door frames, and a lot of other things where then the wood is very old. Like we're talking 50, 60 years old. It's really good quality wood. All it takes is a little bit of work to prepare it before you can do anything with it. So sustainability starts from there. And in every process while making everything, at least the ideology we follow here is they're using a very precious material which is being given to us and it needs to last. So if you're going to use it to make something, the best way to make sure it lasts is to make it the best piece possible. You can't get away with shabby work. It'll affect the way the piece looks and also affect sustainability. So I think sustainability starts right from sourcing of the material to making sure whatever you're making or using the piece for is being made responsibly and is going to last forever. That's what sustainability means for us.
So how do you ideate on your designs? Is it like using 3D models or any latest technology that you incorporate?
So what Prajwal really does is sketching on hands. Well, I do a lot of 3D modeling. So I'm aware of SketchUp and I'm aware of Fusion 360. So it gives me a lot more easier to do. Like I'm a lot more fast on 3D modeling, a lot more fast on sketching. So that's how we ideate of like we take an inspiration or some basic geometry, and then we explore both on a different ends, and then we see how do we come together in a middle way where the product is served, as in the product achieves its best state. In terms of software, our techniques are very different, but we have to come on a same point. So that's how we really work.
So basically, some part of designing takes place on the PC or on paper, and some part of designing happens by hand. It's probably happening while you're doing something, a process, or while you're handling wood. So it's designing by hands basically. It's not designing on paper all the time. It's designing while you're doing something. Maybe come up with a new manufacturing technique, come up with a new finish. This kind of designing happens while you're doing some process or while you're doing something. So that is another aspect of it.
There's a lot more designing which happens actually when you're on field rather than 3D modeling or sketching, is what I feel. Because when you sketch, when you 3D, you have like a basic idea of form, but when you actually make a prototype, you really get to know, is the form correct or not, is the detail correct or not, what are the proportions are we looking for, is the manufacturing technique very weak in long term. So there's a lot to do more on hands-on rather than sketching or doing a 3D model. That just gives you a vague idea of what your product should look like. But there's a lot more detail when you actually work with that.
Okay, so what does your process look like then? Like from idea to completion, and how much time does it take to translate your design from paper to market?
It happens. So first you need to have like a basic framework of how your design should look. So are we taking geometries? Are we taking shapes? How are we combining those two forms? How are we combining those two materials? Then you decide what all materials will go well with that form. Because you can't have a form which is vaguely organic, and then you can't have a material which is very sturdy or very rigid looking. So you have to combine both the aspects of it, and then explore it a lot of time, like play with the shapes, deform it, scale down. You know, it's very organic. You also don't know what actually hits you or what actually works for you unless you don't explore it to the extreme. And then again, when you go into prototype, there are different challenges to it, different challenges of because the way you thought of the material would work will actually not work. So you need to come up with an alternative solution to that. So that your design also is not deformed or also does not change, but you need to have the same language to it. So that's how our design process is. You basically learn some, you basically grow some, you basically make mistakes, learn from them, and then come back to the form. But you need to have a basic idea.
So to put it in a straight line, basically from ideation to the time we come to the first prototype and we have our first product that we can say is ready without any flaws, we take about 45 to 60 days. Love is quite fast and coming up with things. Fortunately, we have a factory set up here, so we get to experiment quite quickly. If we have an idea, the ability to try it out and to see how feasible it is quite fast, because like where we are sitting, right under us is the factory. So from an idea on paper to being made in real takes quite a short time. The back and forth happens whenever feasibility comes into question. If we find something that is feasible or not feasible, we can either try to push the limit and make something not feasible into feasible, or then we decide this is not something we can accomplish at the moment. We need to go back to the design board, change a few things, and then come back.
Okay, so this does entail a lot of last minute changes happening, right?
You have to. You actually have to. You have to be open to change your design, to tweak your design, because it's for the best for the users and for the design. Like you can't be sturdy on one thing that you have designed something like this, and you have to take it to the end, even if it does not work for the strategy of it, does not work for the users. You have to be open to whatever changes your design will take. It's for the best, because that's how you learn, that's how you grow, and that's how design takes into place. So that's how we are saying this. You need to do a lot of back and forth, and you should be open to this. It's okay.
So basically, improvisation is the name of the game.
Yeah.
You have to be open to change, or you have to be able to adapt to what problems are going to present themselves. That's all.
So what is your favorite material to work with, and which is like up and coming, and tell us about your least favorite material?
I think wood is like, without a doubt, is my most favorite material to work with. It's not just because it looks good, it does look very good, but the versatility that wood offers no other material has. So that has been the prime, like that is the starting point for most of our things. We've been exploring with a lot of different kinds of woods, a lot of different kinds of finishes on wood. It gives us opportunity to do different processes. Like I said, a manufacturing process, a different finish, a different type of usage of wood, using wood on the outside or on the inside. So wood has always been at the center of our design. Whether we stain it, we leave it as it is, or we use it in any other form, wood has always been what we prefer at the beginning. And other changes just come in, or like we do introduce other materials given on the fact that are we looking to differentiate something, or the fact that something needs more strength than wood can offer. So these are the things that make us go away from. Otherwise, wood would definitely be the favorite material. And the least.
So tell us about.
I can't think of a least favorite material, but I would say working with any kind of plastic or acrylic or anything. Basically, anything that drives away from anything organic, we try to keep away from it. Sometimes it's all you have to use, but we try to keep away from it as much as possible.
Acrylic or plastic?
Same. Plastic. Makes sense. So, tell us about your favorite creation of yours. Like, describe it to us. And if you could, like, give us a tour of your studio, because that's coming up a lot in the chat.
Yeah, we definitely. Can you repeat your question? Sorry, favorite what?
Your personal favorite creation of yours.
I think that's what we start.
Okay, so my personal favorite has been one of our coffee tables. It's called the Edge Coffee Table. It's basically a combination of black stained white ash wood with an island of cane natural weaving. The reason I like this is because this was the first time I think this is the first piece that Love had designed when he joined, and it was a great new challenge for me. The technical difficulties we faced were a lot. It comes across as a very nice, simple looking piece. It's very easy on the eyes. That's what I like about it. That is very easy on the eyes. But I can very easily say it's a piece that we've spent tremendous amount of time going over the details, going over the technicalities, going over to make sure how things will come together. We machined some parts, coated some parts, made them multiple times, and now the piece is finally where it is. So it's like a rewarding kind of a thing after a lot of labor that has come out, and it's come out very well. So that is definitely one of my favorite pieces at the moment.
I think the Vegna chair is something I really like about it, because it's actually an inspiration or an ode to Hans Wegner. It's a huge inspiration. His furniture is great in proportions, great technicalities, great in joineries. So I wanted to keep something of an essence of his. So that is one of the chairs which I really like. And chairs are usually tough to design, tough to make. There's a lot more which you learn while designing them and while making them. So yeah, that is one of my pieces.
So who actually works on the pieces? Like, you guys are into design, so who is the person who gets their hands on that piece and like works on everything?
So basically, how this is split is, I am the person who's in charge of taking manufacturing into consideration. Love is the person, like Love does the designing, all the details. Love has the know of the industry, of the materials, of the process. And once that is done, the feasibility check and the manufacturing is what I am fully responsible for. So fortunately, we've had a very good team of people who are ready to experiment, ready to push their limits. And basically, I like to be personally involved firsthand at any time we are making a prototype. So I myself am personally involved in drawing out templates, making sure everything is done properly, making sure we are choosing the right kind of wood, making sure the products are iterated in a way that every next one tells us something more than the previous one did. So we are not wasting on material, and every iteration is helping us make the product better. So it's me along with a whole team of carpenters and fabricators who come up with the pieces, and then again we come back all together. Love is also involved in the process. We go on a back and forth. क्या better हो सकता है? कहाँ पे हम डिजाइन में कॉम्प्रोमाइज कर सकते हैं और कहाँ पे हम नहीं कर सकते? And accordingly we move ahead.
I think
So what are the...
we made 50 while we were prototyping, we actually made 50 pieces of hem leg, and then we got one piece right. That one detail we actually prototyped like a lot of time in different bolts and different details and different proportions, and then we got like actually a good proportionate leg, like with a good finish also. So that much time it takes to prototype a piece.
Mm-hmm. So what latest technologies do you use in your manufacturing process, if any?
Latest technology, honestly, like I said, the more tradition we talk about, we are also fan of using traditional methods. So I think the latest technology we would use probably is laser engraving, which also is not the latest, but that is as latest as we get. Yeah. Everything else as traditional as it has been for us. We love using traditional joints, splints and mortises. We love our hand planes. We love the fact that we have to sand things manually. So basically, it's a piece in creation. Every piece is carrying with it somebody who's worked on it, and that is a part of the process, I feel. So we don't want to take that away. We like to keep it that way.
That's amazing, actually. So where do you eventually sell your designs? Like how does a person go out and buy them?
So online is one thing for sure. Like we in the last year, I think about November or December, we launched about 50 new pieces. We've also launched our website at the same time. So our website and online presence has been one of the main sources of our sale. And other than that, in our whole community of designers, architects, interior designers, we actively get in touch with architects or interior designers, pitching them our products and pitching them our customization, and also the fact that our facility is available for any kind of manufacturing, even other than what we have to design. So basically, word of mouth, online, and our network of architects and interior designers is where we get our major sales from.
So what threat does a practice like yours face from e-commerce platforms like Amazon and like aggregation, Pepperfry and all?
So honestly, I don't think there is any threat from these people. They land in a completely different category of things. We are more and more bespoke, more and more custom, more and more make a piece that you want to keep for 20 years. And that is where I feel comparison to e-commerce websites just fails over there, that these are not people we are in competition with. These are people who are trying a different kind of strategy. These are people who are trying a different kind of market. Their market is different, their strategy is different, hence their even products are different. So I don't think e-commerce is a threat to us at the moment, or even in this near future is going to be, because like us, there are several more other studios which are coming up of the same scale, who also value the materials as we do, who also value techniques as much as we do. And fortunately, our audience or our customer base is now getting more and more acquainted with this, and are also following the fact that I rather pay slightly more to get something made by a person of this scale than buy something for slightly less from Pepperfry Urban Ladder.
So what do you think about the trend of flat packing? You know, the DIY, the IKEA that's coming up quite a lot.
So again, as Prajwal mentioned, that we are more into traditional making with artisans, joineries, stuff like that. We're not much into flat packing, machine made. So this is actually our current strategy of the studio, that we purposely use artisans and handmade products, because we don't want to go machine made right now at this moment, because there's a lot to learn. First you need to learn how furniture is made, how furniture should be procured, how materials are being treated, and then probably it's like a next stage when you're done with all of this, and then you have mastered all of this, and then you can move to another technique. But we both also relate to a lot of hands-on work rather than machine making. So I don't know, that doesn't really excite me of doing a flat pack furniture or machine made furniture, because there's no fun to it. There's no story to it. There's a lot of story when you make it in hands-on, and use your brains constantly if something is working or if something is not working. So that's my actually take on this.
So regarding IKEA, see, you can't disregard IKEA. IKEA, whatever they have been doing or whatever they have done so far, they managed to get dot by. Like, if not for IKEA, people would not know what good furniture looks like. They are the ones who made it approachable. They are the ones who made it available or even possible for people to see what good design would look like. Now IKEA they've mastered that art. They've developed their hardware. They've developed a lot of things which help them do that. My main thing is, as long as your flat pack ability does not affect the strength or the sustainability, the life of the furniture, it is good. But as far as I have seen, the moment you get into flat pack or any kind of hardware that is meant to save on space, it usually affects the longevity of the product. So basically, every time you disassemble the product, you're taking its life down a notch. And that is what I don't agree to. I'm okay selling a piece or sending a piece, couriering it with its whole size because I know its integrity is going to last forever. The moment I know its integrity is going to take a hit, I will not go on that path.
So you don't ever see your designs being a flat packed version of themselves?
Maybe, see, never say never. So that's the thing. You should never say no. Maybe in future, but that's what he was saying. You need to master what you really believe in. So right now, since we believe in making traditional, making by hand, so we need to master that first. Be in game with that thing. Probably in future, if opportunity, something like if that really excites us, then why not? But again, see, IKEA has mastered that. That is why it really works for their clientele and for all the people who are using IKEA. Again, that is something their strategy. Our strategy is slightly different than that. So we are going with our strategy and what we really believe in while designing furniture.
Okay. So do you believe in collaboration and customization, or like do you strictly sell from a catalog?
No, big time. So we are a fan of collaboration. We are in an open working space. I absolutely tell everybody who comes here that they're welcome to come here anytime. Any architect, interior designers, or even anybody who's watching this, I say very openly that you guys are more than welcome to come here, see us work, see how the facility works, get a more in-depth knowledge of how things are made. And we are more than happy to, if you have an idea, to put it to life, or if you have an idea that you think we can execute, we are more than happy to do it. In fact, we have worked even before this with some architecture studios who have products developed for them. So we are more than happy to collaborate with people who are of the same thinking, who are of the same beliefs, and basically collaboration is something that I think both of us like, and even as a studio we firmly believe collaboration is the way ahead. So collaboration is something we strongly believe in, and we do make custom pieces for our clients.
Also, there's a lot to learn from collaborations. There's something which we don't know. There's a detail which they have explored. There's a manufacturing technique they are aware of. So, if they bring that into picture, even by manufacturing that and really talking to them of their vision and their idea, it gives us a lot of knowledge about more knowledge about designs. There's only to learn and only to grow when you collaborate. There's something positive in. There's something positive and negatives is what you adapt and learn. So always everyone is welcome to customization. There's a lot which will happen in near future.
So to put it in one line, we are 100% okay with collaborations, and we are more than open. We welcome them. Absolutely.
We look forward to that. So for all the future furniture designers out there, how do you price your products? How do you value them?
So pricing is it's a complex issue. So I don't want to just put it aside saying it can't be done or there's no straight answer. Basically, a lot of time, like even when I started off, I used to think if something costs me X rupees to make and I sell it for X plus 2, I'm making a profit. The thing is, economics or finances is a little more complicated than that. There are a lot of more things to be expected. You have your fixed expenses, you have your rents, your salaries, your things you pay outside, your taxes, your GST. So there are a lot of other things that need to be involved before you can decide how much you want to price your product. So one good way to figure out how much you're going to price it, or if you want a starting point, is always to look at the market. You can go on an Urban Ladder or a Pepperfry, see what quality of things they are making, and see where you can land on quality, and then decide how much you can sell your piece for. That is one way to go. The other way which we follow is we know what our material costs are, we know what our fixed costs are, and we know what is the kind of revenue we are looking for to make this sustainable. So it has to be fair for us to be able to make these things which we like doing, and it has to be fair for the customer to buy, who's spending his money on buying something that he likes. So it's not something that you can answer in black and white, but hopefully I've answered it at least partly.
Yeah. So there's always like a period of struggle and to achieve a milestone. So what has been your struggle and what do you count as a milestone?
The milestone here, I would say in this February we participated in Design ID, which was Asian Paint Elle Decor Design ID in Delhi. So this is something that we were looking forward to. This was our first main commercial exhibition. This was the first time we were going to enter a big space with the big players. So when I say big players, we are talking about players from Italy. So we are talking about competing with a brand that has existed for more than 50 years and us being a brand that has been existed for 4 years. So that was like a very big milestone for us, and it was challenging in a very different way. So we did the Raw Collaborative the year before, and fortunately Love happens to be a resident of Ahmedabad, so things were very easy for us. He had his contacts, he had people over there to move things around, he had people over there to get things done if something did go wrong. Fortunately, nothing went wrong and Raw went by very smoothly. We loved the experience, we loved the people we met over there. We still work with them, we still are in touch with them. Design ID was a slightly different game. So we finished all our manufacturing, all our prototyping and everything, and we shipped the products at the time we were supposed to. Unfortunately, the day Love and I landed in Delhi, we realized that our products are not here and they are not going to make it in time. So it started right there. I think 13th was their preview day, the VIP day, when all the VIPs, only VIPs were given access to the whole exhibition to see it without any crowd or with much less crowd. And unfortunately for us, we didn't have anything on display at the day. So we had to let that day go by. Yeah, so it was like both of us were extremely crushed. There was nothing we could do. It was stuck in transit. There was nothing we could do. We waited patiently, couldn't sleep that night. Next day morning, I think 6 o'clock, 6:30, we were at the grounds. The guy from the courier guy called us, we coordinated. And right before the exhibition was about to open for public, like literally in half an hour, we have ourselves carried our pieces, placed them over there, unwrapped them, threw all the pieces outside, did our whole setup, and like right before the exhibition was started, fortunately we had our stall ready, and that was like an achievement. After 3 days, like anytime we talk about Design ID, that's the one incident we always discuss. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of challenging also because you need to get your set right. The set which was provided, the color palette has to work. The whole space has to work to make my products work. So you need to get everything right because there's a lot of eyes on you. There's a lot of customers who sit on that, jump on that, touch, feel, basically everything. So you need to get everything. We got actually everything right, but this one thing was actually still when the products are not there, we really can't show of what actually the hard work which we have done in the previous month.
Yeah.
So it actually came half an hour before exhibition. So we both were the only ones who were carrying the material, unwrapping, wrapping. I think we did everything in half an hour, and our set was ready in half an hour. It was people of ID were really nice, really cooperative also. It was one of the best experiences which we had. People are amazing to help us out, and the exhibition also went really well after that, and we got a good response after that. So that was like a high point and low point in that exhibition.
So this has definitely been a milestone for sure because it's gotten us in touch with a lot of people that we looked up to, that we wanted to collaborate with, and I just overall feel like this has introduced a brand on a new level. So I feel like that is what made the difference, and that is definitely a big milestone that we consider.
Amazing. So apart from this, what has been the biggest challenge for you in setting up this firm?
Sorry, can you repeat?
What has been the biggest challenge for you in setting up the firm?
So in setting up the firm, honestly, I started in 2016, like I said. We all start doing things or start companies thinking we get to do what we love or we will get to do what we thought we like, and that's how you decide what you want to start. The thing is, right now I'm only doing 5% of why I started this company, and 95% is make sure that I comply with the kind of things that I have to. I have to get customers, I have to do sales, I have to do taxes, I have to do GST, I have to do salaries. So I would say finances is something that is not either of our strong game, and that is something that we have struggled to a lot. Financial discipline has been instilled in us a lot by people who are aware of this. So in the past 2 years, we made efforts to make sure financial discipline is being put in place, systems are put in place, and basically you have to get to do doing things you don't like to do or you don't want to do, because there's no other way you're going to make a business survive if you can't get your finances right. However good designs we make or however much we collaborate with the biggest of people, if you don't have a finances right, we're not going anywhere.
So who are the people who you give credit to for everything, like for your financial stability and like setting up your firm?
So honestly, when I set up my firm, I was fortunate enough that I did not have to start off with any kind of seed capital. I was fortunate enough to land a project that gave me the seed capital, which then we pushed into marketing, which then got into everything. The main point where we needed some capital to come in was when the factory unit started. And my family has been the biggest support in that sense. There was something that I had saved from the previous years of practice and something that my family trusted me, supported me and put in. And that's where we are standing up right now. And recently, even when Love joined in, even Love has been an amazing support at doing these things financially, design-wise, getting me to getting all of us here more and more knowledgeable to what is happening in the design world. Because honestly, being involved on the factory right there all 12 hours of the day, it is very difficult for me to know what is happening in the design world. So that is where he comes in, and he's been extremely supportive, extremely knowledgeable about these things, and he can talk about the design things.
So I think challenge is something you can't really leave. If there's one, if one part is completed, the other will start. So as I told, we recently completed ID and all things were good. The orders were coming, the details were coming. So and then lockdown it is actually. So you just really need to cope up with all of the things. You need to have ability to start again and again, and just believe in yourself. I think believe in your work, believe in yourself, and just keep pushing it. I think things will work eventually. And in terms of design, you really need to ideate, knowledge yourself, learn a lot of new different things, because you need to keep up with the design language which is going right now, and to re-ideate your design language only. So you have to keep up on your mind and keep learning, keep reading blogs on Instagram, in newspaper, books, just to keep you updated. What are the good process of design? That's why we keep up to it.
So what is the next big thing that you're working on right now?
Next big thing right now is 20th of August is our 4th year completion day. And for the same, we are planning to launch 2 new pieces. And I'm sure you'll find out about them soon enough. They are both armchairs. So the designing is done, the prototyping is on its way. And we are just waiting now to get to a part where we can do the shoot, finish the shoot, get some good, great pictures. And by the 20th of August, have 2 new pieces ready.
So for our clients out there looking to purchase new furniture, what tips would you like to give them? What should they keep in mind?
So one thing that I'm not sure where I read this, but one thing I can tell you for sure is you want to see how good a furniture piece is made, just look underneath it. If you can see the chair is looking good even from underneath, you can tell very well that it's been made well. Another thing that I think, this is more ideological, another thing that to look at practically is, we see a lot of clients going more and more towards a price constraint than a quality constraint. And that is something I feel it needs to be a little bit more flexible. I understand everybody has budgets, everybody has to fit things within a certain level. But always competing on price or always deciding on price is not the best idea. I think it's time that people start giving quality a little more preference than price would be. Like I would be happy if somebody came and told me, I want this quality and I'm ready to pay X price. Instead of telling me, I want X price mein jo bhi baith sakta hai. So that basically kind of a setback, because then you are deciding on things based on price and not on quality. And I would rate them the other way. I would rate quality before price. Of course, price makes a difference, and our whole intention of trying this is to get a fair price to the customer, but at some quality.
Well, that's amazing. So how are you guys doing in the lockdown? Like, how has the lockdown affected business?
So I can't be lying. The lockdown definitely has affected our business. We've lost about 2 months of business, and the overheads are still piling up. We are in talks with the owner here, and people have been supportive. Definitely, they want to be supportive. But again, unfortunately, there will come a time when everybody will come to a point where everybody will draw their line. So we've been operating for over a month now. We are operating at half the strength. We are taking all precautions that are necessary for this. We are trying to keep the ball rolling with as much work as possible. And again, appealing to more and more people to go local than going outside or than going international. Because I really feel like we can, or there are a lot of Indian makers who are coming up right now who can make stuff that is equally good, equally at par, and definitely equally at par with design also. It has definitely affected us in, you can say, a negative way, but yeah, we are trying to keep up right now. The motto for right now is survival, get past these 2-3 months, and then we can get back up, definitely.
Could you give us a tour of your studio? That came up quite a lot in the chat.
Yes, just give me a second. So you're gonna have to, like everybody who's watching, this is not okay, I think I just gotta show you what the studio looks like now, which are the factory floor. Okay, so this is where we were. That's our studio upstairs. The door you see here is where we enter from, and right here, this is the entire unit.
Oh, that's a huge space.
Yes. So I'm just going to walk you by now.
Yeah.
This here basically is all the material, where all the material is stored. So this side basically is all the woodworking side. This side is all committed to woodworking. So you see some machines over here, all the wood stacked over there. We have a ready piece covered in plastic over there. And this area here is mainly kept for assembly. So whenever there are pieces in numbers and everything, we need a lot of place for assembly. And most of our carpenters, or even us right now, prefer to work on the floor. So we have some tables set up over there to make sure whatever needs to be done on the table gets done on the table, and whatever happens on the floor is what this space is for. This space is then dedicated to all fabrication, so all the metal work happens over there. The metal work will take place in this area. It's a little bit messy right now because we recently did an order. So that's that. This is the big entrance of the studio. This is where all the material loading and unloading happens. The whole gate opens up so you can make sure the truck can get inside, you can load it, everything safely, and then come back. The area covered here you see is the upholstery area. We have a tool wall over here. And inside is our upholstery area. I'm just going to take you there. So this is our upholstery area. This is the main sewing thing. And a table here, which right now isn't in the best of conditions, but yeah.
That's amazing. Okay then. So this was a great insight into your journey and process, and we feel privileged to have great minds and ideas like yours in our midst. And we really thank you for striving to keep the traditional arts alive, because in this society right now we need it the most.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We are very glad we could join you. Thank you so much for all the questions, and thank you so much for having us.